just tell me flat out, no, I'm not meeting with you. I'm busy.
Because nobody treats me like this, Jackie. Sorry. None of the other
Dawn,
people I've
I
been with
am
have treated me
again
like this.
within my rights to ask you to meet with me. That's all I asked of you. I would like for you to show me or point out tonight in any communication that we've had where I have treated you in an inappropriate way, so I can address that with you. I don't see, I've gone through the messages that I sent you. I'm looking at the emails that I sent you. I'm missing where I have spoken to you inappropriately or treated you inappropriately in any way.
Somebody's trying to buy a policy from you. So it was only until when I told Maria in that email that I was not comfortable talking to you because we had a very difficult, rough start, and HR knows about this. That was that was why I didn't want to talk to you because
Right. I'm very
I was
aware. I've
afraid of
spoken,
that.
right. I've
You know, I
spoken with
felt
HR.
threatened. Yeah,
I've
and I
spoken
felt
with HR.
thing. I'm
But
just
if we're
saying,
being
like, that's
honest,
how I felt. I felt like every time I talk to you, it's maybe I'm gonna lose my job, or um I made a mistake like this, or I'm not good enough, and no matter how hard I try, I'm still not good enough, or something, right? So it's just your approach and the way you talk to me. Just I I'm like the worst person for this kind of stuff. Like, if someone talks to me, they really have to be like respectful, because I'm a calm person, but it takes a lot to um get me this upset, and I don't enjoy this job because of the way that you approached me. I never had issues like this with the other team leads. They've never done this. But I may not be suitable for the way that you talk to me. I'm not suitable for that.
And so another big lie, which is adding to the list of lies, she said, you would respond to other team leaders and not to me. And I said, look, there was only one day that I did that because you were so hard on me. You basically, what she did was she said, where are you, what are you doing, just trying to ask me about my IT issues yet again, when I already told her the whole thing. Like, I showed her the spreadsheets, and she was trying to nail me again. Okay, she was trying to get me. And I responded to another manager on duty, and he said, hey, your manager's looking for you. And I said, I really don't give a shit about her because she's a bully. I didn't tell him that. I just didn't even want to respond. So she said, you're insubordinate. And so I told Maria, and I said, um, I can't do this anymore. I can't communicate with her because she's so aggressive with me. She actually hates me to the point where she's trying to get me out of the company right now. And she then made this list of lies saying, you dropped off the team meeting and repeatedly refused to enable your camera. That has never happened. That's such a lie. Um, she's talking about the couple of seconds I had it off where I was trying to adjust my camera because I have a standing desk. So when I have the camera on, I want it to be at a certain angle. And my camera doesn't go all the way up. So I have to adjust it in order to be able to appear on camera nicely, right? So she was talking about that 10-second thing. It was really sad. I can't believe she talked about that. And then she said, you attended one meeting but left prematurely. This is mental. I've never done that. I saw other people leaving the meeting before me, and so I left. I left just like they did. And she said, you left early. That was such a lie. So basically in the email, she had nothing to go off of. She was trying to grab anything she could get to report me to HR. Even after she reported the disconnected calls, she was still trying to get me out with those lies. Now, it is an offense to lie to HR, and you can get disciplined, and you can also get fired. So I did have to use those lies that she used against me to defend myself. And apparently HR, I think HR did, as I mentioned, HR did speak to her. She changed a little bit, but then she became consistently, like, she was still threatening in the way she was acting. Like, she didn't allow me to really ask questions. She made it impossible for me to ask questions. And even after the IT issues were resolved, she was still trying to get me. She was still trying to get me out of there. Finally, and this was at the end of that, let's see, I joined in August. So it was 2 months later that I got an email from a message from the head of the call center. He said, hey, we resolved your disconnections. The head of the call center said to me that we resolved your disconnections. So since he said that, and I knew that this wasn't my fault, because the thing is that I had all this evidence. I had video evidence, I had Excel spreadsheets, I had screenshots. All of that was sent to them, and they dismissed that. So they dismissed all of that. So what I thought was, oh, they dropped the HR case. They dropped the disconnected calls case. But no, they didn't drop it. They still investigated, and they 1 month after I got that email from the head of the call center, they ambushed me on that day. So they ambushed me, and I actually didn't see it coming, but I thought that it was something odd about that day. And I was actually doing well. I was like closing a lot of sales that day. And so she appears on camera with some guy, was an older guy, and I think he was one of the call center guys who had been working there for a long time. There's a lot of like call center managers that have been here for like 20 years. So this is not a new company, it's an older company. And they appeared on camera and they said, so what they said was, we're going to dismiss the disconnected calls prior to 3 weeks before they fired me. That the 3 weeks before they fired me, they dismissed all those disconnected calls because it was a lot of technical issues. And they actually waived that. So I was safe because I knew that it wasn't my fault. I knew that all these issues were pretty serious IT issues. And as mentioned, there were so many agents disconnecting calls because they had gone onto a new software that caused also a lot of connection issues. So it wasn't only me. When I had my internet solved, other agents were still having major disconnections. So there were people who probably had never had that issue happen, suddenly have that issue because they switched to a new software. I think it was Amazon AWS. And so after that, they appeared on camera and said, oh, based off of those calls in the last 3 weeks, we found that what you said was not up to company policy. So we're just going to let you go. And today's going to be your last day. And you got to give me your address. And that was that was it. It was very quick and fast. And she wanted me out of there so fast that I couldn't even think. So I said, wait a second. I caught what she said. I said, that 3 week thing, what do you mean? So I said, what call? What call was not up to company standard? Can you play the call? And she said, no, it's HR. It's a decision by HR. And we decided to just let you go based off of that. And here's the thing, as I mentioned, she didn't have to do this. She could have just tried to resolve what I said. Because I was a new agent, I was literally on the floor for like 2 weeks, after 2 to 3 weeks after training. And there was still so much we didn't know. There was still so much we didn't know what to say, that they should have just stopped it and resolved it with the agent themselves. And there's just so many agents that they have, like there's 600 agents, so it was so odd that me and my colleague were let go. So she was let go 1 month prior to me because she had an HR case come up earlier. So HR takes a while to investigate these things. They take like a couple months. So once they find something, they can actually fire you. But she didn't like my friend, pretty much because my friend was, she had a good personality. She would come in the call center and she would, in the chat, and she would be really friendly and talk to us really friendly. And she didn't like that. So this woman who was so self-centered and narcissistic, she doesn't like when somebody else is, has a good character or good personality. She doesn't like that. She has to be the center. She has to be like better, right? Because she's so insecure about herself. And I'm gonna put a photo of an actress who I think looks exactly like her and acts like her in the movie. She acts like this lady from Misery, the movie Misery, Kathy Bates. She looks just like her and acts just like her. She's a psycho. So things were so, it was just like a domino effect. And the other people in the team, she would never do those things to them like she did to me. She would never like intimidate them. She would like praise them, and they would have these secret competitions, which I never knew anything about. I didn't know that there was a sales competition, like best agent. I didn't know that they had a best agent award. No one told me about it. Like, no one ever told me about that. And suddenly it'd be like, oh, this person won the award. And I was like, what? When did that email come from? Like, all these things that are like isolating and making personal comments and making horrible comments to me and trying to get rid of me, like trying to wipe me out for no reason. There was no reason to do this. And I'm smart and capable, and I know how to talk to customers. I know what to say. I know how to resolve things. I'm pretty good at resolving things. There was hardly any managers around to help us. So all I had was the chat help, and then also just the main group chat. If you want to ask questions, you can put that in the chat and see if someone responds. That was pretty much it. The managers were never around. Even when they were around, they just never responded. She never responded to a lot of stuff. I would say 95% of the stuff that were put in the chat, nobody responded. I even talked to HR and I said, hey, she's not responding to us. There was a lot of stuff that I told HR that she did and didn't do, and things that she could have done. And basically it's like 3 months of just constant bullying, right? It's like 3 months of consistent behavior, of just put downs and like threats and intimidation and just negative personal comments against me. I mean, I have never ever experienced, except one time when I had a manager who hated me and she was also female. Besides her, I've never gotten it this bad. But most call centers are, I would say, pretty bad because they have like a racial preference, and they also have preferences like favorites. Like if, let's say, you're not black or you're not Hispanic, they kind of don't like you if you're a white person. So I would say that that's pretty prevalent in call centers. But this call center that I was in was not, it wasn't that way. It was a really well run call center, but the managers were, that manager was bad. I don't know where they found her. She shouldn't even be a manager. Like, she shouldn't even be doing that job. She can't even handle herself. And I wish they had just pushed me over to another team, because I would have been so good in another team. I would have been like amazing in another team. I would have been making a ton of money for the company. I would have been promoted. I think I would have been a great trainer. There's just so many things that I could have contributed to this company, and they're so shitty and dumb, and no critical thinking skills involved in what comes out of the decisions that they make to go to HR. Because I guarantee you, none of those people on my team were ever reported to HR. And this whole thing was planned from the beginning. She didn't like me from the first time that she probably saw my name and said, oh, I don't like her. I don't like her last name. I don't like her last name. I don't like that she's messaging me questions. I don't know, like she drummed up some bullshit thing in her head thinking that she didn't like me. And there were so many agents there that were actually bad and worse than me, like far, far worse, that still got to keep their job and still, yeah, and they had like no sales or very little sales and they're still there. I mean, like, I worked so hard, and this is how you repay your agents. You know, the whole company's revenue is based off of how many policies they sell. So if they're making great margins, which I did see in a journal released by a magazine, that this company was doing well financially because of the sales. If your agents are precious and you want them to make money for the company, why don't you treat them with basic respect? This piece of excrement had no respect. She had no decorum. She had no critical thinking skills. She couldn't think to save her life. She couldn't take care of her own butthole, let alone me, or let alone a human being on her team. That's how low IQ she is. She has done this at the detriment of the company, and they have lost an amazing, amazing person. And my friend was really good too, and she shouldn't have been let go. She was so new. She was brand new, and you know, we were all learning. As I said, we were just out of training. I was on the floor for 3 weeks, and there was so much information we didn't know about. And yet for HR to do this, screw you, man. You guys are scumbags. You guys have no clue how to talk, how to handle human beings. You call yourself HR? You may be going by the policy, but when you get on the phone to take these calls, which are so scary, so demeaning, abusive, demoralizing, you wouldn't be able to handle that. They couldn't even handle when I spoke to them. There was this one HR lady who was so horrible. She didn't even want to listen to anything I said. And she said, "Oh, it's okay. Oh, it's okay." And she would just like ignore and say, "Oh, what's your concern about?" You know, like they try to minimize it. And they don't even understand what the meaning of harassment and bullying is. They don't know what that constitutes. It's like, to them, harassment and bullying, you know, the stuff I went through was like public ridicule. And, you know, like she basically complained that she had to organize my disability stuff. Nothing to do with my performance. My performance was stellar. Just because you have a disability letter does not mean you're disabled. It means like you could have something wrong with your neck, or your fingers could be broken. That could be a disability. So nothing to do with how smart, how capable you are. It's just that they have to give you that. It's a federal law. If they don't follow it, they can go to prison. They can be fined, sued, they can go to prison. They have to follow that. If they retaliate, they can be sued by the EOC. I know all my rights, okay? I know a lot about this stuff. And when I say harassment, there's a lot of stuff that goes into that. You know, the public ridicule, the tainting of my reputation, like spreading lies about me, about who, like what kind of person that I am, what kind of, you know, character I am, or my performance. That kind of thing does constitute as a part of harassment and bullying. It's also persistent, and it got more aggressive over time. And there was no training provided by her. And I believe there was a lot of retaliation coming from her after my report to HR about her. And there's a lot more that goes into this. Oh, and I actually forgot to mention that one time she actually cut off my phone. She would not allow me to take calls because I didn't want to answer her phone call. I didn't want to talk to her. She was already bullying and clamping down on me so much that I couldn't even function. I couldn't do my job duties. It was so bad. I was intimidated. I was isolated. I was put in a corner. No one actually helped me, and I was scared. I was actually scared that I was going to be further bullied, and this is very serious. Being bullied at work can constitute a lot of mental health issues, can cause someone to commit suicide. So I don't take this lightly. I was definitely feeling those feelings of dreading coming to work, dreading being alive. All those things that I shouldn't be feeling, because this job is so serious that you actually have to have fun a little bit. And if you don't have fun, you're not gonna, what's the point in like living life, right? You have to have some fun, you have to have some enjoyment. And if there's nothing that you can enjoy in life, there's no point coming to work, because I had very little enjoyment at this job. The only enjoyment I really had was talking to people, because that's when I could get away from her. The second I was on the phone with a customer was my chance to be protected. So I felt like I had some sort of shield from her, because she couldn't stop the calls. She couldn't cut off the call. And that's how sad it was. It got to that shitty little sad level, which was so pathetic. I don't know who the hell would want to do that kind of job, but they're lucky that they had me to endure all that shit that was thrown at my face. I couldn't do my job anymore. I was paralyzed. This person was literally paralyzing me every second of the day, intimidating me. Management knew about it. They didn't want to do anything. I spoke to the head of the call center. They did not want to transfer me to another department. They wanted to keep me there. They wanted to see how I would handle it, but they just didn't know. I think they didn't know that I was being bullied so badly. And if they knew, a lot of these higher up managers are actually paid pretty well. They don't have really much to do. They just write stupid stuff in the chat and monitor stuff, but they don't really see what's going on at the ground level. Like with me as an agent, they don't know what I go through mentally, so they don't really care. That's why they just don't do anything. So it's really pretty bad. And basically, if you're retaliated against, which I felt that I felt like things kind of had gotten worse. So my advice to people is you have to fight back. I want to backtrack a little bit. Her behavior did improve a little bit after the HR thing and after reporting her to the call center head and all those people above her. It got a little better, but it did get, like, some of those weird behaviors would come back, like stalking, asking me where I was, what I was doing. When I was in a training class, she would say, how is training doing? It's just, it's garbage. It's garbage. Why do you want to ask me that? I'm in a training class. I'm in a training class and the trainer is there with me. And I'm learning stuff. I'm so busy learning. There's so much stuff they're throwing at me, and I have to worry about you. After 2 months of abuse, you're coming back to ask me what I'm doing in training class? So of course I responded and I said, hey, everything's fine. I try to be more communicative, because what this bitch does is, if I don't respond quickly, she'll try to find a reason to nail me. So what I changed was I responded really quickly so she wouldn't do that. She wouldn't pull that crap on me again. I just wouldn't allow it. And I kept a record of it. I keep records of everything that happened. That's how bad it was. I was just like busy keeping records after records, and I wasn't doing my job. So it was so horrible. And I feel like if you have a boss this bad, like if you have a boss that is like this bad and this, harassing toward you, I would just say, my advice would be, just get out of it. Leave the company, because what's going to happen is, if you don't leave the company, they can blacklist you. Because after firing me, after, whatever crap that they said was on the call that they never played for me to hear, I think it was easier for them to fire me than to keep me on, because I had a lot of reports filed against her. And they probably wanted to keep her because they couldn't find another person to train. And basically, if she files a report with HR's job is to look into the complaint, and if they find one little sliver of a mistake, they can fire you, which is stupid because they shouldn't be firing new agents on the field, which is what I've been saying since the beginning. Like, you're new, you want to try and nail us. The whole thing is crap. So if you find a boss like this that's trying to bully you, my advice would be to just get the hell out before you get fired, so that they don't blacklist you, and try to realign your mindset. Try to be in a peaceful place after that, because it's for you to kind of go back and sue them and all of this. It's a very expensive ordeal, and it might not even work, and some lawyers may not even want to take up the case because it has to be a protected class. I would say maybe the EOC is your only chance. Of course, if you're still in the company, you may not want to do things like that because you don't want them to fire you. And I even considered filing a restraining order against her because she was harassing me so hard that I couldn't do my job. I wasn't able to come to work and get on the call and take a call normally because I was shaking, I was scared. And as I mentioned, bullying and harassment constitutes a lot of things. It's actually workplace violence. And workplace violence can very much happen in a call center that's remote. It can happen even working from home. Like, workplace violence does not just happen in a physical call center. And all of these things, like workplace harassment and bullying, can sometimes be illegal. I'm not a lawyer, but you should get a lawyer if you want to, get proper legal advice. One of the weird things that my friend said that she did was on her meeting, and this was, she treated my friend the exact same way that I was treated. It was very similar. My friend said that she grabbed her hair and was like, ah! Like, she was so angry at my friend that she grabbed her hair and was like, ah! It was insane. It was like a psychopathic movie, like from that movie Misery. It's bad. So there was just so many things that happened prior to me being let go, and there was just no reason to let me go at all, based off of what they did and what I did and the evidence, and it was bad. It was bad. I in many ways I wish I had spent my energy and time, working for another company where I could put a lot of my brain power and energy into that, rather than working for a bunch of turds that had no interest in me progressing in the company, even though I was an amazing agent and I was an amazing person. Like, I wish I had been recognized by a company that saw those qualities in me. So there's just so many reasons to not stay behind in a job like this, and to really think about your well-being and health before, kind of putting yourself in a position to be fired and to be intimidated and harassed this way. So I just wanted to share that with you. There's obviously going to be more stuff that I'm going to be posting, but this was just pretty much what I wanted to say, because I think people didn't know the whole story. They just thought that I was the one that caused it. Like, it's so stupid how people jump to conclusions and be like, you're the one that caused this because you had the IT issues. No, false. The whole thing of me having the IT disconnects, call disconnects, it was happening with, as I said, hundreds of agents. Hundreds of agents were having the same thing. She just wanted to target me, and all that evidence is really clear in black and white. There's just a lot. There was just a lot in there that may not be understood by a lot of people because they were not gaslighted that badly or harassed that badly to even see it. Like, they didn't go through it mentally and physically. I physically was, harassed and stalked by this person. So there was so much to that I feel like if let's say one of your colleagues says that, hey, I was like abused by my boss, just have some sympathy, have some empathy, and like, try to, show them some, support, because they're alone and they may not have had that support when they were harassed by their boss, right? Because their boss wanted them to be isolated and alone. So for you to be there for them is very critical. I try to be there for my colleagues who tell me the same thing. I have talked to colleagues who have been bullied before, and I always offer them support, and I say like, hey, you can call me or talk to me if you need support. And also another thing was, there was actually a group chat in the call center where I made friends with a guy who was having a lot of difficulty with his job, and we would talk a lot about how bad things were and what our managers would do. So I would send him screenshots of what my managers would do, and sometimes, because this manager was so bad, she would make up like bullshit stuff, like saying, you have to ask these questions before diving into the sale, which we never had to do, like during training, like we never. And she said, it's based on evidence and studies. And I've done so many calls, and I can tell you, like, the evidence and studies that she's talking about, they don't make a difference, because people actually just buy off of price if the price is good, or they buy off your personality. And it takes a lot of energy to kind of push the sale. Like, it takes a lot of energy to get someone to buy something, like the back and forth, the banter, that kind of stuff. Some people don't even want to do that. They don't even like that. Like, I've tried doing the shitty thing she wanted me to do. I've tried doing that. They don't like that. They're just like, give me a quote and give me a price, and and if they like it, they will definitely buy. But if they don't like it and you try to push back like 4 or 5 times, they don't even want to buy. They think you're just being too aggressive, and a lot of times they hang up on you after you give them the price. So what she's saying really has no basis, because I was closing a ton of sales without that sales process. The stuff she was forcing me to say did not work, because I had a ton of sales that were closed. So that's enough evidence for me to confidently say to the management, like, hey, we don't really need this. But I didn't tell them that. I did it anyway, and I did everything that they asked me to do, but she still wanted me out of there. So it was just such a horrible and horrific experience. I wouldn't wish this on my worst enemy, because the mental toll that it takes on your body and brain is so heavy that you start getting into like depression. Like, you start doubting yourself. You start wondering, like, am I good enough for any job? Am I good enough for, like, should I even be alive? I mean, it's a very serious thing. I'm not laughing at that. I'm just laughing because it's sad. It's sad. I just don't like when people are put in those positions and forced to endure torture and abuse. So I would urge people to kind of leave the call center, to be honest, like leave that industry. I know it's hard, because if you need an income, you may need to like stay in that industry, but go pursue another profession, like go be a beautician or esthetician, financial advisor, be a lawyer, do something more prestigious, because call centers don't have prestige. The only people that have prestige are the people at the top levels where they just don't really have a real job, meaning like they don't talk to customers. They wouldn't be able to handle the type of customers that we deal with anyway. Like they act like they're all high level and macho, but the second they get on a call, they're gonna be like, demolished by these insane, crazy customers. Like they wouldn't be able to handle it. So, it's not worth your mental health at all. So I would just say, hey, take a second before, they fire you. Give yourself some consideration. Give yourself some time to think. Okay, is this something I really want to tolerate? Is being fired something I really want to risk myself doing? Have some critical thinking skills and think about the consequences of being fired before, allowing them to treat you that way. So my advice is, get some advice from family and friends, but more importantly than that, think about the consequences for yourself that could hurt you and the position that you're going to put yourself in, because your new employer is going to want them as a reference. If they fired you and you got terminated, you may not be hireable. So it's better to just leave the job and go to a new career, rather than be terminated if you're looking at a similar career. So yeah, I hope that this was helpful, and I think my next video would be talking about friends in the call center and friends outside the call center. Basically, people who don't see what we see on the inside. I think that would be my next video, because it honestly has been disappointing getting support, but that would be my next video. Thank you so much for watching.